The meeting ended, but the red light on my laptop camera didn't go off. I sat frozen, still muted, watching my own reflection in the small video box when my boss Derek's voice cut through the silence. Pathetic. She's a complete liability to this team. My face went hot. My throat tightened. I reached for the mouse to click leave meeting, but something made me pause. I glanced at the participant list on the right side of my screen. There it was, a green icon next to Sophia Hart, TechBridge Solutions. The client was still logged in. Derek kept talking. Did you see how she stumbled over those numbers? I can't believe we sent her to lead that pitch. Embarrassing. My hand hovered over the trackpad, trembling. Every word felt like a slap. I wanted to disappear, to close the laptop and pretend this never happened. Then a soft chime broke through. A new message appeared in the chat window I'd forgotten to close. It was from Sophia. We're still here. The room went silent on Derek's end. Complete, heavy silence. I took a screenshot. My hands were shaking, but I captured everything. The timestamp, the participant list, the chat message. Then I saved it. I counted my breaths to keep from crying. 1, 2, 3. 15 seconds of absolute silence stretched between us all. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. I kept staring at that green icon next to Sophia's name, proof that every cruel word had an audience Derek didn't know about. Finally, Derek cleared his throat. Well, I think we're all done here. His voice had changed. It sounded smaller, uncertain. He was scrambling. Thanks everyone for joining. He ended the meeting quickly after that. I sat alone in my bedroom office, staring at the blank screen where the video call had been. The silence in my apartment was different from the silence on the call. This one was mine. I opened my email and forwarded the screenshot to my personal account, typing the subject line with shaking fingers, Evidence, October 12th. My phone buzzed. A text from my coworker Casey. Are you okay? That was brutal. So other people had heard it too, even after they thought the call ended. I didn't reply. I couldn't find words yet. Instead, I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Bricks. The next morning, Derek walked into the office carrying 2 coffee cups. He was smiling, acting like absolutely nothing had happened. Great job yesterday, Maya, he announced loudly, making sure everyone in the open office could hear him. He set 1 cup on my desk. Vanilla latte, right? He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Let's not be too precious about feedback, okay? It's how we grow. Feedback? That word made my stomach turn. I remembered his voice saying, pathetic and liability, like he was discussing a broken printer. That wasn't feedback. That was cruelty. Thanks for the coffee, I said quietly, taking the cup. It felt wrong in my hands, like accepting a bribe. He smiled again, satisfied, and walked away to his office. I watched him go, noticing how he nodded at other colleagues, so confident and in control. I waited until he closed his office door. Then I opened my laptop, pulled up the screenshot from yesterday, and forwarded it to my personal email again, this time with the subject line, Derek's feedback, day after. I wanted a record of this too. The coffee sat on my desk getting cold. I didn't drink a single sip. At 3:07 p.m., my phone buzzed on my desk. An email from Sophia Hart, the TechBridge procurement lead who'd been on yesterday's call. The subject line read, Quick debrief, just you and me? My stomach flipped. I read the message 3 times. She wanted to meet privately. No Derek. No leadership team. Just us. I replied within 2 minutes, suggesting the small conference room on the 3rd floor at 4 p.m. She agreed immediately. When I walked into that conference room, Sophia was already there. She looked professional and calm, but her eyes were serious. Maya, are you okay? She asked, closing the door behind me. We heard everything yesterday. I opened my laptop and pulled up the screenshot, the timestamp, the participant list, the chat message she'd sent. I needed to confirm, I said, my voice shaky. I needed to know it really happened. She studied the screen, then nodded once, firm and decisive. It happened. I recorded the time on my end too. We heard every word he said after he thought the meeting ended. She looked at me directly. This isn't acceptable. Thank you for showing me this. Derek called a team huddle at 5:15 p.m. That awkward time when everyone's tired and ready to go home. We gathered around the standing desks near the windows. He stood in the center, hands in his pockets, trying to look casual. So, yesterday's call might have sounded a bit harsh, he started, forcing a laugh. You know how it is. We kid because we care, right? I watched my coworkers drop their eyes, staring at their shoes or their phones. Nobody wanted to be part of this. But I didn't look away. I kept my eyes on Derek's face. You know the client was still logged in, I said. My voice came out steady, stronger than I expected. The room went completely silent. Derek blinked twice. No, they weren't, he said, but his voice cracked slightly. The meeting had ended. I didn't argue. I didn't pull out my phone to show the screenshot. I just let the silence sit there, heavy and uncomfortable. Casey shifted beside me. Another coworker, Brandon, coughed. Derek's face was turning red. Anyway, he said quickly, let's all just move forward, okay? Good talk, team. He walked away fast. I stayed there with my coworkers, and for the first time, I felt something shift. They'd heard him lie. They'd seen me stand up. That mattered. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a mug of tea. I opened the bricks folder I'd created yesterday. Inside was the screenshot from the Zoom call. I stared at it for a long moment, then started adding more files. I dragged in the calendar invite from yesterday's meeting. I added 3 emails from the past 2 months, where Derek had clarified that my project wins were actually team efforts led by leadership. In one email, he'd literally removed my name from a presentation deck and replaced it with his own before sending it to the VP. I found a text message I'd never deleted from Casey. He took your pricing model and put his name on it. I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I took a screenshot of that text and added it to the folder too. Each file felt like a brick. I was building something, a wall to protect myself, a case to prove what was happening, a foundation to stand on. I labeled each file carefully with dates and descriptions. Then I backed up the entire folder to 3 different places. My personal cloud, a USB drive, and an external hard drive. By midnight, I had 17 files. 17 bricks. I closed my laptop and finally felt like I could breathe. The next morning, Derek tried to corner me at the elevator. I was holding my coffee and checking my phone when he appeared beside me. Maya, look, he said, lowering his voice like we were sharing a secret. I vented the other day. Everyone vents. You get that, right? I thought about how carefully I choose my words when I'm nervous, how my voice gets higher when someone interrupts me. How I practice presentations 3 times before meetings because I'm terrified of messing up. I looked at him directly. You didn't vent, I said. You removed my dignity in front of a client. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. The doors opened. Derek stood there, mouth slightly open, searching for words he couldn't find. I stepped into the elevator. He didn't follow. I pressed the button for the 3rd floor and watched the doors slide closed between us. My hands were shaking again. But this time it felt different. Not like fear, like power. I'd said what needed to be said, and I'd walked away. As the elevator moved upward, I looked at my reflection in the metal doors and barely recognized myself. I looked stronger than I felt. 2 days later, Sophia emailed again. The subject line read, "Private working session?" She wanted to meet without any of my company's leadership present. Just me, her, and her director Olivia Park to discuss the TechBridge account going forward. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, my laptop bag feeling heavier than usual. My fingers kept finding the trackpad nervously, opening and closing tabs. When Sophia and Olivia arrived, they ordered drinks and sat across from me in the quiet corner booth. "We want your strategy," Olivia said directly. She didn't waste time on small talk, "and we want you to lead the account implementation." That word, you, landed differently than I expected. It felt like a key turning in a lock. "I can do that," I said carefully, "but I need you to know something. I won't be protected at my current company, not after this." Sophia and Olivia exchanged a glance. Olivia nodded slowly. "We understand, and we're prepared to work around that." She slid a folder across the table. "This is a proposal for direct consulting. You'd work with us independently." I looked at the folder but didn't open it yet. "Can I think about this?" "Of course," Olivia said. "Take the time you need." I scheduled a meeting with HR the following Monday. I arrived at 9 a.m. with my laptop, a printed timeline, and a calm I'd spent the entire weekend building like a bridge. The HR manager, Teresa, sat across from me with a notepad. I didn't cry. I didn't ramble. I opened my laptop and pulled up the bricks folder. October 12th, 3:47 p.m., I began. My boss called me pathetic and a liability during what he thought was a private conversation. The client was still logged into the Zoom call and heard everything. I showed her the screenshot, the timestamp, the participant list, the chat message from Sophia. Theresa's face remained neutral, but she took notes quickly. I continued, walking her through emails, texts, and calendar invites that showed a pattern of Derek taking credit for my work. I spoke for 20 minutes. When I finished, Theresa closed her notepad. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll need to look into this thoroughly." I'd heard that phrase before, look into this. It usually meant nothing would change, but I wasn't done. "I need you to confirm receipt of this complaint in writing," I said, "and I need it today." Theresa blinked, surprised. Then she nodded. "I'll send that within the hour." By Friday, I received an email with the subject line, "Performance Improvement Plan, Immediate Action Required." My stomach dropped as I opened it. 3 bullet points stared back at me. Demonstrate stronger ownership of client relationships, improve tone in cross-functional communications, increase visibility within leadership discussions. None of it was measurable. All of it was vague and slippery. I read it twice, then a third time. This was retaliation, clear as day. They were punishing me for going to HR. I walked to Theresa's office without an appointment. She looked up, startled as I entered. I didn't sit down. I opened my laptop and turned it toward her, showing the screenshot of the Zoom call. "You confirmed receipt of my complaint on Monday," I said quietly. "Today is Friday. This performance improvement plan is retaliation." Theresa's face shifted. She looked uncomfortable. "Maya, this is a separate process." "The timing isn't separate," I interrupted. "I reported harassment on Monday. I received this on Friday. That's 4 days. So I'm asking you, on the record, am I still here in good standing, or am I being forced out?" She stared at me for a long moment. "Let me review this with legal," she finally said. "Thank you," I replied. "I'll wait for your written response." I left her office and went home early. That evening, I forwarded the PIP email to my personal account and added it to the bricks folder. 23 bricks now. The consulting proposal from TechBridge sat in my inbox like a door I wasn't sure I should open. The terms were generous, more than my current salary, flexible hours, and a 6-month contract with potential for extension. It was everything I needed to leave Derek and this mess behind. But I didn't sign it. Not yet. I hit reply and typed, "Thank you for this opportunity. I need 1 week to consider it carefully." I hovered over the send button for 30 seconds before clicking it. Sophia replied within an hour. "We'll wait. Take the time you need." That sentence made my throat tight. They were willing to wait for me. When was the last time anyone had waited for me? I called my best friend that night. "Why aren't you just taking it?" she asked. "You hate it there." "Because I'm not running away," I said, surprising myself with my own words. "If I leave now, Derek wins. He gets to keep doing this to other people. I need to finish what I started." She was quiet for a moment. "Okay," she finally said, "but promise me you'll take care of yourself." I promised, but I wasn't sure I knew how to do that anymore. At lunch the next day, I sat with 2 junior analysts, Carrie and Benson. They were both quiet, the kind of people who never spoke up in meetings. Carrie picked at her salad nervously. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. "Of course." "Derek takes our work," she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one could hear. "He says it's mentorship, that he's elevating our ideas. But it's just stealing." Benson nodded. "He did it to me 3 times last quarter. Took my market analysis and presented it to the VP as his own strategy." I felt anger rise in my chest. Not just for me anymore, for them too. "Do you want to document this?" I asked. "Together, we could write down what mentorship has actually looked like under Derek." They both looked scared, but they both nodded. We spent the next hour writing everything down. Dates, projects, emails. We each signed our statements and made copies. When we finished, Carrie's hands were shaking. "Thank you," she said. "I didn't think anyone would believe me." "I believe you," I said. "And what you just did, that took real courage. It matters." Sunday night, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Derek had sent an all-hands message to the entire team. "As we move into Q4, we need to acknowledge that we've lost confidence in certain contributors who aren't aligned with our values." My name wasn't in the email. but my whole body knew it was about me. My heart pounded as I read it again, looking for any direct reference, any smoking gun. There was nothing explicit, just vague, poisonous language designed to make people wonder and whisper. I saved the email to the bricks folder immediately. Then I opened a blank document and started writing. The words poured out of me. Leadership is how you talk about people when you think no one's listening. It's who you are when the meeting ends and the camera light stays on. I formatted it as a LinkedIn post, but I didn't publish it. Not yet. I saved it as a draft and closed my laptop. Timing mattered. If I posted it now, I'd look reactive and emotional. But if I waited until the right moment, it would land differently. It would land like a hammer. I slept badly that night, dreaming of red camera lights and silent Zoom calls that never really ended. On Monday, I reopened the campaign lift analysis Derek had mocked me for during that Zoom call. He'd said I stumbled over the numbers, that I'd paused too long. But that pause wasn't confusion. It was caution. I'd wanted to verify a figure before stating it as fact. I reran the analysis using the final quarter data. The numbers came back even better than I'd projected. My stumble had actually been accuracy. My caution had been correct. I printed the graph, walked to my desk, and pinned it to my corkboard. At the bottom I wrote one word in black marker: facts. When Derek walked past my desk later that afternoon, he stopped. He stared at the graph, then at me. His mouth curved into a smirk. "Cute," he said. I smiled back. "Accurate," I replied. His smirk faded. He walked away without another word. Casey, sitting 2 desks over, caught my eye and gave me a tiny thumbs up. I felt a small victory settle in my chest. It wasn't about proving Derek wrong. It was about proving to myself that I'd been right all along. That night, I added the rerun analysis to the bricks folder. 29 bricks now. The wall was getting higher. On Wednesday, Teresa from finance, the director who never smiled, stopped by my desk. "Can we chat?" she asked. Off the record. Her tone was serious. We walked to an empty conference room and she closed the door carefully. "I've received complaints about Derek before," she said quietly, sitting across from me. But nothing ever stuck. People were too scared to go on the record. I leaned forward. "Are you scared?" I asked. She thought about it, really considered the question. "I was," she admitted, "but now I'm angry. And anger is more useful than fear." She told me about 2 other employees who'd left the company in the past year, both citing Derek as the reason. One had even mentioned his comments during private conversations. HR said there wasn't enough evidence, Teresa explained. But I kept the exit interview notes anyway, just in case. "Can you share those with me?" I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "I'll send them from my personal email, tonight." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Maya, be careful. Derek doesn't lose gracefully." "I'm not trying to make him lose gracefully," I said. "I'm trying to make him lose, period." The retaliation came fast and ugly. Within 2 hours of my HR meeting becoming office gossip, Derek pulled me from 2 major accounts. He didn't even tell me directly. I found out through calendar updates. Meetings I'd been leading for months suddenly had his name instead of mine. I immediately opened a new email to Teresa. Retaliation, October 28th, 2:47 p.m. In the body, I wrote a brief, factual summary. I reported harassment on October 16th. Today, I was removed from the Grayson Importer accounts with no explanation. Per company policy section 4.7, this constitutes workplace retaliation. I attached screenshots of the calendar changes and hit send. Then I went home early, claiming a headache that wasn't entirely fake. That evening, I ironed a shirt for tomorrow. The routine steadied me, the hiss of the iron, the smell of warm cotton, the neat creases under my hands. My phone buzzed, a text from Casey. "He's telling people you're stepping back to focus on development. Just wanted you to know." I replied, "Thanks, I'm keeping track of everything." She sent back a heart emoji. It was small, but it mattered. I wasn't completely alone in this. Thursday's status call was Derek's next attempt to break me. He called on me suddenly, interrupting someone else mid-sentence. "Maya, why don't you update us on the client deliverables, since you've had so much time to focus on development?" The sarcasm in his voice was thick. People on the call shifted uncomfortably. I took a breath, steadied myself, and spoke. I kept my voice level, my answers concise. I cited specific metrics, timelines, and outcomes. I didn't ramble. I didn't apologize. I just delivered facts. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Then Sophia from TechBridge, who joined the call, spoke up. Thanks for that clarity, Maya. That's exactly what we needed. Clarity. Not charisma, not charm, just clarity. I ended the call and walked straight to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and cried for 5 minutes. Not because I was sad, because I was exhausted. Keeping my voice steady took everything I had. I washed my face, reapplied my minimal makeup, and went back to my desk. Derek glanced at me as I passed, but I didn't look at him. I just sat down and got back to work. By November, rumors were flying. The company was being acquired. Suddenly, HR responded to my emails faster, choosing their words like they were walking through a minefield. The acquiring company's name was Vertex Solutions, and their culture deck started circulating on Slack. Bright slides full of promises about accountability and zero tolerance for toxic behavior. I forwarded my formal complaint to Vertex's general counsel email address. I attached the Zoom screenshot, the chat message, the timeline of retaliation. If they were doing due diligence on this acquisition, they needed to know what they were buying. The subject line read, "Documented workplace harassment, current employee." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The email disappeared into the void, and I had no idea if anyone would read it. But at least I'd tried. That afternoon, a reply came from an address I didn't recognize. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. This has been forwarded to our integration team." It was formal, almost cold. But it was acknowledgement. Someone at Vertex knew. I screenshotted the reply and added it to Bricks. 37 files now. The wall was almost complete. 3 days later, an email appeared in my personal inbox from someone I didn't know. The subject line read, "You're not the first." My stomach clenched. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but something made me open it. "Hi, Maya. My name is Diana Porter. I worked under Derek 2 years ago at his previous company. He did the same thing to our team. Publicly humiliated us, took credit for our work, retaliated when we complained. I left before I could finish documenting it, but I kept my notes. If it helps your case, I'm willing to share them." Attached was a PDF, 15 pages of emails, timestamps, and meeting notes. The language was almost identical to what I'd experienced. The same contempt, the same manipulation. This wasn't a one-time incident. It was a pattern. I replied immediately, "Diana, thank you for reaching out. Yes, I would like to share this with HR and the acquiring company. May I have your permission?" Her response came within minutes. "Yes, please. I should have done this years ago. Make sure he can't do it to anyone else." I forwarded the entire email chain to Teresa, to Vertex's general counsel, and to the HR hotline. Then I added it to the Bricks folder. This wasn't just my story anymore. It was bigger than me. The next morning, Teresa called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable, which immediately put me on edge. "Maya, we're withdrawing the performance improvement plan," she said carefully, sliding a printed email across the desk. "After reviewing the timeline and circumstances, we've determined you're in good standing." I stared at the email. It was worded like a clarification, not an apology. They weren't admitting fault. They were just quietly erasing their mistake. My hands shook as I picked up the paper. Not from fear this time, but from massive, exhausting relief. "Thank you," I said quietly. "We'll be in touch about next steps," Teresa added, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. I nodded and left her office, walking straight to my desk. I sat down, opened my laptop, and saved the withdrawal email to 3 different locations. Then I opened a blank document and titled it, "Post." Inside, I typed 4 words, "Leaders don't humiliate people." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I added, "Real leadership is who you are when you think no one's watching. When the Zoom call ends but the camera light stays on." I saved it. I still wasn't ready to post it. But soon. 2 weeks later, I received a calendar invite that made my heart stop. Board Committee Listening Session, November 18th, 10 a.m. The invite came from someone I'd never heard of, Patricia Thornton, Board Member Audit Committee. I wore the shirt I'd ironed weeks ago. I brought the Bricks folder in a canvas tote bag. When I walked into the conference room, 3 people sat waiting. Patricia, another board member named Simon, and someone from Vertex's legal team. I set the tote bag on the table like it was a quiet weapon. Then I told them everything. I started with the red camera light that never turned off. I showed them the screenshot, the chat message, the timestamp. I walked them through Derek's fake apology, the retaliation, the performance improvement plan that appeared 4 days after I reported him. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't perform emotion. I just laid out the facts in chronological order, adding documents from my folder as evidence. When I mentioned Diana Porter's email, Patricia leaned forward. "There's a pattern," she said, almost to herself. When I finished, Patricia looked at me directly. "Thank you for your courage in bringing this forward. No promises, no guarantees, but her eyes were steady, and that mattered." A week later, whispers about the TechBridge consulting offer leaked somehow. I don't know who told Derek, but suddenly he tried to scare me. He forwarded my employment contract with one line highlighted, the non-compete clause. "Just a friendly reminder," his email read. "You're bound by this for 18 months post-employment. That includes consulting for any clients you worked with here." My stomach dropped. 18 months was a lifetime. The TechBridge offer would be gone by then. Was I trapped? I forwarded the contract to someone I knew in legal compliance, a former colleague named Isla who'd left the company last year. Her reply came back within an hour. "This clause is completely unenforceable as written. It's too broad, no geographic limitation, and no reasonable scope. He's bluffing." I forwarded her response to Teresa with a polite request. "Can you please confirm the enforceability of Section 7.3? Legal confirmed it 3 days later. The non-compete was essentially meaningless. The ghost vanished. That night I slept for 7 hours straight for the first time in 2 months. When I woke up, I felt lighter. Derek's last weapon had turned out to be made of paper. The next week, Sophia sent me a file. The subject line was simple: "You need to hear this." My hand shook as I downloaded it. I was sitting in my living room, tea going cold on the coffee table. I clicked play. Derek's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Pathetic. She's a complete liability to this team." Then more. "Did you see how she stumbled over those numbers? I can't believe we sent her to lead that pitch. Embarrassing." It was the entire post-meeting conversation, recorded accidentally when Sophia's screen capture kept running. She'd thought the call had ended, but her software hadn't stopped. The proof wasn't just a screenshot anymore. It was his voice, his exact words. Undeniable. I listened to it twice, then forwarded it to Teresa, to Patricia, to Vertex's legal team. In the email I wrote, "This is the incident I reported on October 16th. Audio evidence attached. The recording was 43 seconds long, but it was enough. Derek couldn't claim I'd misheard him. He couldn't say it was taken out of context. It was just him saying those things while the client listened in silence." I saved the file to Bricks. Then I closed my laptop and cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. The truth had a voice now. On a gray Tuesday in late November, an all-staff meeting appeared on everyone's calendar. Leadership update, mandatory attendance. I walked into the main conference room with my stomach in knots. Derek sat at the head of the table, jaw set, hair too neat, like he'd tried to look composed and failed. Patricia Thornton stood at the front. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Effective immediately, Derek Winters will be stepping down from his position. We're grateful for his contributions and wish him well in his future endeavors." No soft language about spending time with family. No pursuing other opportunities. Just a clean corporate line. Derek's face was blank, but his hands gripped the table edge. The room was silent. People stared at their laptops, their note cases, anywhere but at him. I didn't smile. I didn't feel triumphant. I just breathed. I thought about Carrie and Benson, the junior analysts whose names were finally safe. I thought about Diana Porter, who'd reached out across years and companies to help me. I thought about everyone who'd been too scared to speak up. The meeting ended quickly. Derek left through the side door. I never saw him again. That evening, my phone buzzed with a group text from my team. "Is it true? Did he really get fired?" Someone sent a confetti emoji. I replied simply, "Yes, it's true." I signed the TechBridge consulting agreement on a Thursday morning at my kitchen table, the same place where I'd listened to Derek call me pathetic with my hand frozen over a mouse. Sophia confirmed that I'd be leading the account directly with full creative control and a team of my choosing. My old coworkers sent a group text with a screenshot of the internal announcement and way too many celebration emojis. Casey wrote, "You did it. You actually did it. I smiled, reading her message 3 times. I opened LinkedIn and pulled up the draft post I'd written weeks ago. I read it once more, then added a final line. Real leaders don't humiliate people when they think no one is listening. They build people up, even when no one's watching. I hit post. Within an hour, it had 50 likes. By the end of the day, 500. By the end of the week, it had been shared across my entire industry. People I'd never met commented with their own stories. The post didn't need to go viral for me to feel whole, but it did, and that mattered in ways I didn't expect. On my last day, I had one final internal Zoom call to wrap up transition details. When it ended, I hovered my cursor over the Leave Meeting button. Then I clicked it. The screen went black, the camera light turned off, and the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned.